Hey, what's going on YouTube? Sticky Side down here. Got my throttle cable kit, Motion Pro 2 variable rate throttle. Can't wait to install this bad boy. Oh wow. It even comes with grips. Man, those things are cheesy feeling. Not even gonna lie. Like super cheesy feeling. Hopefully my stock throttle grips will, and handlebar grips will work with this throttle tube. I know the left one will, which that will always stay, but the actual throttle tube one, I'm hoping it's the same opening size. So I do not want to use this because this is, man, that is cheesy feeling. And this one's a full race kit, so we'll see. So first of all, you have to obviously take the seat off to raise the tank up, and you can just, it props up on its hinge right here, little hinge access. And then we got to take the air breather off, the top of the air breather, and then get down to the actual air box itself, and we gotta take that off. So you gotta pull all these screws out, gotta take the ECU out, or off. I got one of the screws out, and you gotta take the other one out so it lays over here, so this box can come out clean, or the top of the box, air box, so I can get to the underside and pull the bottom of the air box out so I can get to the throttle bodies, so I can get to these cables and try to get them taken out, and then the new ones fed in to see what's going on. Went ahead and disconnected the plugs that were connected to the airbox top as well. That way that makes it so much simpler just to pop that thing off and get it out of the way. So now we gotta start undoing some of these screws. So top of the airbox is off, and I still have this screw. I'm gonna pull the filter out here. So I have still that screw, and then I have these screws or Allen keys for these velocity stacks that hold it down to the throttle body. So I gotta take those out, and then this box here will come right out, and then we can access the throttle bodies and see what's going on underneath with the cables. You're pulling the airbox out, there's a tube here, you can't forget that, and then you come over here and there's another one right here as well, and it's got a clamp on it. The other one did not, but that, whoop, there it is, and then it slides underneath into the neck of the framework for your intake down inside there. Just like so. And now I can access my cables, and it looks like it's 2 cables. Sweet. Now we just got to take some cables off. Now to figure out how to get these cables loose, because I don't have, I might be able to do that way. Let's find out. So it's a 10 millimeter, and I pushed on my butterflies, and there is no cable movement. So that is awesome. So when I put the new cables on, and the cables are very loose, so that means when I go to pull these cables out, I'm not gonna have to worry about whether or not it's gonna move my butterflies and ruin the position of the throttle bodies for a later tune, because it doesn't have any effect on them.
Okay, so there's that. feet forward.
So I'm gonna have to loosen up these up here. Because I have all the play taken out of my cables. So I don't like any play in my cable. So we're gonna loosen up these cables up here all the way. I may have to take the throttle tube out to get more slack. Yeah, I'll have to take the throttle tube out to get more slack out of the bottom cables. The rest is kind of integrated into the end of the bar, and I still, oh yeah, I should be able to slide that out, no problem. So now I've got to turn this. So I've got to get to these screws down here, right here, so I can get this loosened up and get the cables pulled apart, and so it'll loosen all the cables down here so I can just pop this right out. So you want to be careful taking out these button head screws. Let me see if you can see them. They are an absolute pain in the butt because they are made from super soft metal and they absolutely want to strip out. So be careful in taking those out. So now I've got the cables loose, and this one's off, and this one's off, and my throttle tube is off. So now that these cables are super loose, I can actually come around here, put these right there. They should be loose enough to be able to just pop right off and out of the track. This one's gonna be a little more difficult. There we go. Just like that. And then I should be able to slide that out of that groove and that one out of that groove. Like so. And then pop these out of the, there's like a little clip that the cables route through to keep them from moving around. It's going through like a little anchor point right here. So I've got to take these out. Looks like a 6mm, 5 or 6, probably more like a 5. Yep, 5mm Allen head. So I can pop these off. That is not going to work. It's at too much of an angle. Do a 1/4 turn at a time. Ah, man. Some things you gotta live your life 1/4 turn at a time. Sucks. But it's the way it goes sometimes. We can take this one, top one off. Fairly excited to see how this is gonna go. It's like totally raining outside, so I've got a lot of free time right now. So take that one out. We'll put it down here for a minute and go back to the 1/4 turn at a time. There, I spun that all the way out of the way. So now, let's see what we got here. Up and out. Yeah, What is that? Yeah, it's hung up. There's, yeah, that elbow, the metal elbow, and the nuts on each end is, so these are gonna have to be fed one at a time, because there's like a metal, some kind of metal rod right here for other things that is holding some other things in place. So now this is routed out, so I can make sure I remember where this routed through, so that when I'm putting the new wires in, or new cables in, it goes right back to where the old one was. So here's the new Motion Pro version. So now we just see if we can't reroute these through. So I routed the cables through, and they routed actually quite nicely. They actually routed real nice. But now I just got to put the throttle tube on and the cable. Where is that at? The piece that holds the cables into the throttle tube itself. That way when I turn the throttle, I know which cable goes on the top and which cable goes on the bottom, because we don't want to go the other way, then it won't throttle correctly. So now I've just got to find that piece. I set it down somewhere and I seem to have misplaced it already. Starting out great. So that's a nice little upgrade. Has Allen bolts instead of Phillips head bolts. So take this apart and get it put on the bar here. Whoops, wrong way. And it's gonna face the opposite direction of what my other ones did, so they're easily accessible, because the Phillips head on the other cable holder was facing toward the brake leveler, and it was very hard to get to, and being the screws are soft, it made it even harder to take the screws out without stripping the heads out. So now I got to take this apart and get it put on and start feeding the cable, or hooking the cable up, so I know what direction the cable is going to pull what cable down here, so I know what direction to hook it up so it will pull the throttle bodies the correct way. So this gear is the race street version. There are quite a few gears, different colors for different millimeters, which in turn makes it a percentage of throttle turn. So it recommends, the one I bought recommended the street race version, which 40%, the very first 40% of the throttle turn is a smooth transition, and then the rest of it is very aggressive. The variable rate kicks in and it really opens the throttle. Continue on. I've got this routed in the correct way, and I've got these cables tightened down. So now I've got to put, this has got it's got like 3, if you can see it, man, it's got like 3 grooves on it, and it fits in only one direction. So there we go. Jeez, got it. So there's 3, like and it sits in a groove, and now I've got to get the shell, the housing, and put that back on and tighten that down so this thing just doesn't fall apart on me. Unfortunately, I have to use the grips that came with the kit, because my grip does not fit their throttle tube. Their throttle tube is considerably fatter than my grip opening, so I actually have to use their grip. I'm not crazy about the grips, and This one was so tight I couldn't even hardly get it. I couldn't get it on there, so I had to put a little bit of dish soap on the actual clip-on so it would work. And now it's, I mean, I barely used any, and that thing is, I can still turn it like real easy. So it's gonna take a while to dry out, like quite a while. But once it dries out, it should be pretty stable. I may have to safety wire the ends of it and these two grooves, because I had to my old bike when I put the throttle tube on, because it would go on but it would slide right back off, so I safety wired it. So I may have to safety wire this side. I'm definitely going to safety wire this side because I don't want it slipping on the throttle tube itself, the grip. So, but the wires are, or the cables are routed. That one's pretty loose. That one's, man, that one's still a little tight. Let me see if it, yeah, it's coming back. I'm barely putting any pressure on the throttle, and I can hear them clicking, the throttle body's clicking. That means they're closing all the way with hardly any pressure. So that's good. Oh my gosh, there's hardly any rotation. That's actually quite impressive. So, ooh, man, they are not wanting to shut all the, at least they don't feel like it. There's like no play. Well, there is a little, but that play is actually pulling the cables. So that tells me that, I mean, these are adjusted as loose as they'll go, so to speak. I mean, they're as loose as they'll go. So that tells me this down here is not, so that is still too tight. So I need to loosen this up some more. I need to make this down here as loose as possible. That way all the adjustment is up here. That way this throttle will have some sort of, there, I mean, you gotta have some slack in here, and there is absolutely no slack before it starts moving that cable. And that's what we don't want, because it makes your throttle inputs very abrupt when you get back on the throttle, and I don't like that. I want to have some play, that way I can start rolling in the throttle and then it picks up. Alright, so now it's all set up, everything's closed off, everything's tightened, cables are tightened. I got that to adjust quite a bit better than what I thought. I mean, I really put a ton of slack, and I was able to actually loosen the back screw, the jam screw, and was able to leave this inside this groove and move the nut. You just had to, I had to fiddle with it, and I was able to take this adjuster screw here on the bottom and move it without pulling it out of the groove, which works out way easier. After all that time trying to figure that out, got that taken care of. So this cable is run through there. Now I've got slack, and I've got quite a bit of slack, and I like that. But that thing, hardly any pull whatsoever, and the throttle bodies fall right back. And that's what I want. I want them to fall back, because if they don't, then it's going to cause an issue. Let's turn this, turn the handlebars, make sure that it doesn't pull on the cables. That's not what we want. We'll turn the handlebars and the throttle starts to open up, and that's a bad juju. That makes out for a bad day. So now it's time to start putting everything back together. Alright, so the velocity stacks are back on. There we go. All back together. I do know one thing. There's not much pull at all to get that thing to wide open throttle. A Motion Pro Rev2 variable rate throttle kit installed. Now for a test run. Seems to be idling good. No high idling with steering input. Oh, this thing gets that front end up quick with that throttle. I gotta get used to it again, but it's a little stiff. So you really have to walk into it, and then it's like, hello.